Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice of radio. So today, we're going to be looking at a Raikou deck, which has been doing really well in Japan, and has gone and won itself a tournament. This is one of those cards, one of these Pokemon that we said looked alright and might be good, but we were a little skeptical as to whether or not this would end up being good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the verdict is in, and this is a good, viable Pokemon. It's Raikou. And coolly enough, this actually plays both of the Raikou. Now, to be fair, this was actually released as one of our theme decks, which makes this a rather easy Pokemon to get hold of. And you can get a holo version in the theme deck, and that's all kind of good. But this really is the part where we need to remind ourselves what this actually does. And what it does for a lightning and a colourless is it does 30 damage, but if you have any lightning energy in the lost zone, you in fact do 120 damage. Sounds good, right? And we talked about Ampharos. And Ampharos has got a phenomenal ability whereby you can put 2 lightning energy into the lost zone and then get automatic paralysis. Phenomenal ability. But the problem is you've got to have your stage 2 Ampharos out and 2 lightning energy in hand. But what's happened is a lovely chap over in Japan has actually gone, well, hang on a second, we can fix this with Volkner, and Volkner's phenomenal here. I should mention it was the lovely Code64 who did share this with me over on Twitter. And what happens is, you use Volkner and you search for a lightning energy in an item. And you make your item of choice Lost Blender, which lets you put 2 cards into the Lost Zone from your hand and then draw a card. And then you're done. That's it. You don't even need to play more than 2 Lost Blender, and honestly, you only play a second Lost Blender in case one of them is prized. You could have both prized, but it's highly unlikely. And you literally just Volkner for a lightning energy and a Lost Blender, and then you're off straight away. And you're hitting 120 for 2 energy. It's phenomenal. It's so good. And that's essentially it. That is the premise of this deck, ladies and gentlemen. You just hit 120 with Raikou and you're off. Again, 120 might seem a bit low, but we're going to talk about Electro Power in just a moment. Plus, you are a single prize Pokemon, so you can afford to 2-hit KO some GXs, and unless they start doing Ace Roller shenanigans, you'll be fine. But we have some other Pokemon here, including the other Raikou. Now, this one, for a single lightning energy, does 30 damage. And you get to attach a lightning energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. So the key here very simply is that you need a second energy. So you need to get it on there somehow, and this is one way that you can actually do so. Though we do have a better way, and the better way here is Tapu Koko Prism Star. Now it's a Prism Star, you can only use it once and you can only put 1 in your deck. But essentially when it's on the bench you pop it in the Lost Zone and then you accelerate 2 energy to your bench Pokemon, 1 to each from the discard. That sounds like fun to me. But we have a couple of other Pokemon we play here as well. Now we do have Zeraora GX, and there's 2 things we like about Zeraora. Firstly, it's got the ability which gives your lightning Pokemon free retreat. And secondly, it's got a GX attack, bearing in mind it's the only one we can use, which lets you attach 5 energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way that you like. Now, you do have free energy 160, which could be the big attack you may otherwise be missing, but it's not the main reason you play this. The main reason you play this is for the free retreat and the GX attack. Now, we also play a couple of Zapdos here because Zapdos is over the top good. 80 damage for a single energy, just so long as you became active this turn. Plus, it's got a resistance to fighting rather than a weakness, so something like Boswell that will run through most of your deck will have a much more difficult time against a Zapdos here. We play 1 copy of Marshadow because, well, you can shuffle your opponent's hand into their deck and make them take 4 cards. You do that as well. It's a nice thing against Unknown Hand. If they just build up a big hand, they can win, so you stop them doing so. But it's also nice disruption if you've got a better setup than your opponent. And we also have here 2 copies of Oranguru. They've gone for the fancy shiny Oranguru, as you'll see in a minute. But this just lets you draw till you've got 3 cards in hand. This is your draw engine. I love the idea of this deck, ladies and gentlemen. And then in terms of energy, you just play 8 lightning energy because you don't need anything other than lightning energy. This is fun. What about in terms of trainer cards here? Well, there's quite a lot of trainer cards here. We have 4 copies of Guzma, and this is important because even though you've got electro power, you're still only hitting 120. This is not a giant smash one-hit KO deck. You need to be taking little Pokemon off the bench to KO them. You need to be 2-hit KOing, and they're going to try and go to the bench, so you can't. You need Guzma in this deck more than you need it in most decks. So you play the full 4 here. You play 4 copies of Electro Power, obviously, but you also play a copy of Electric Charger. Flip 2 coins. For each head, you get an Electro Power back. You'd like to play more than one. Space says you can't. 4 copies of Volkner. It's amazing in the early game, and you're not playing Tapu Lele here. You want a largely non-GX deck. So, yes, you're playing your 1-0 Aura, which is lovely, but also here, you just don't want to clog up with Tapu Lele on your bench. So what you do is you play 4 copies of Volkner, and hopefully you'll draw into it nice and quickly. 1 copy of Judge, it's a bit of disruption. It does what Marshadow does, and you know what? Yeah, Marshadow is your Pokemon, Judge is your supporter. Judge doesn't take up a bench space. Marshadow means you can still use a supporter for the turn. They both do the same thing, but in slightly different ways. In terms of Pokemon search, we get ourselves 4 Ultra Ball and 2 Nest Ball. Now hang on a second, given that you've got all basic Pokemon, how come you're only playing 2 Nest Ball and 4 Ultra Ball? Because Tapu Koko and Marshadow have coming into play abilities. They have abilities that work when you put them on the bench from your hand, and Nest Ball means you don't get these abilities. So you've got to be playing Ultra Ball here. Because Ultra Ball lets you have those abilities, Nest Ball takes them away. But you're still playing a whole bunch of basic Pokemon, so once you've exhausted all 4 Ultra Ball, you can only play 4, that's when your 2 Nest Ball come in. We see 4 copies of Acrobike. This is popping up more and more in Japanese decks. I've seen a lot of Japanese decks playing 4 Acrobike lately, and I think I might need to do a video about Acrobike in the not too distant future, because it really is starting to get kind of crazy good. But in a deck like this, it's speed. It's so you can draw into your Electro Power so you get the KO rather than being 10 or 20 damage short. It's so you can draw into your Guzma when you want them because you're not playing Tapu Lele. And, you know, for Raikou and Tapu Koko, you do need energy in a discard, so it's nice to put the energy in with this. We see 4 copies of Switch because you're playing Zapdos, and Zapdos is awesome when it gets into the active and does 80. It then becomes terrible because you're doing 10 damage, so you need to get it in and out of the active to really make the most of it, and for that reason, you're playing 4 Switch. We see 2 copies of Lost Blender that we've talked about. We see 2 copies of a Rescue Stretcher to recover your Pokemon, because you might not want 3 Raikou from Lost Thunder, you might want 6. This gets them back. We see 4 copies, and I adore this, of Custom Catcher. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 4 copies of Custom Catcher. When you play 2 at the same time, it's an automatic gusting effect. But you're playing Volkner, which lets you search out item cards. So if you've got 1 in hand, you can search it out with Volkner, and then you've got your gusting effect. Or you can draw into them naturally because you're playing Oranguru and you're playing Acrobike. You've got some decent draw here. I adore Custom Catcher in this deck, and it's like we talked about a minute ago when I was telling you about Guzma. You need to be able to pull stuff off the bench here. It is so important in this deck. So Custom Catcher is great. We see 1 copy of Escape Rope, forces your opponent to switch, and it gives you an extra switch, and again, Zapdos means you need switching. 1 copy of Po Town, because your opponent, well, any Pokemon, takes 3 damage counters when they evolve. Well, you're not evolving anything, so you're not taking any damage. But hopefully your opponent evolves up, takes the 3 damage, and like we've said all the way through this video, you're not quite doing enough damage. Guzma and Custom Catcher help, Electro Power helps, Po-Town helps as well. And obviously you're playing 1 copy of Thunder Mountain because it reduces the attack cost of all your lightning Pokemon by 1 lightning energy. Raikou becomes 1 colorless energy. Zapdos becomes a free attack. And you've got Tapu Koko Prism Star. And you've got Raikou from Shining Legends. You've got ways to accelerate energy. But the fact of the matter is your main attacker here attacks for 2 energy. Thunder Mountain gives you at least 1 turn where it's a single energy attack. And that could be the difference. And we see 2 copies of Energy Spinner. This is the promo that Japan's got that we don't have. Unless you search for a basic energy, it's an energy search. Except on your first turn of the game going second, when it lets you search for free instead. Quite frankly, you need your lightning energy here. You're only playing 8, which isn't that many. And you need it every turn. If you miss an energy attachment here with a 2 energy attacker, it goes pretty badly pretty quickly. So you need to play this. And remember, you can search it with Volkner. I adore this. I've looked at a lot of decks lately that I really like and really want to try out. This is one of my favorites. You know how everyone's playing Zapdos in Japan? Well, actually, since Tag Bot became legal, that's not quite so true. But it's still one of the best decks in Japan. Yeah, it's weak to lightning. So Raikou will 1-hit KO Zapdos, but Zapdos doesn't hit for weakness, so it doesn't 1-hit KO you back. It's a great counter to Zapdos, but the 4 Custom Catcher, the Volkner and Lost Blender combo, I just adore this deck. I think it's brilliant. I am definitely going to be playing around with it when it comes out. All right, ladies and gentlemen. That's enough rambling from me about this deck. I want to know what you think about this deck. So ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, but please do remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, because I talk about other games on there and it's fun. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.